DanIsStoned squad, my name is DanIsStoned, and thank you for joining me today for another Imperator Academy video. In today's installment, I shall be talking about land battles. This will not be a guide on army composition or unit types, and will only analyse the inner workings of combat. This means that we shall be taking a look at how land battles work in the 2.0 update. Hopefully this will help you triumph on the battlefield. Before we start the video, I've made a quick guide to 2.0 Marius detailing the different changes, so if you're a new player or a returning one and want to see what these changes are, then please go and check out the video, the link will be in the description. Now that small intro is over, let's dive right into the video, an Imperator Rome guide to land battles. First of all, we need to explain what land battles are and how they work. A land battle is essentially a meeting between two armies on a specific battlefield. The fighting lasts until the enemy has been routed, when its morale hits 0 or all of the units are killed in action. Now this sounds pretty simple, right? That's because we have not taken into account a ton of modifiers that are applied in combat, such as terrain, general traits and stats, tactics, and individual unit stats. But before we go ahead and take a look at all these potential modifiers, let's start small and see how units line up in a battle to fight each other. So how do cohorts line up against each other in Imperator Rome? To keep things as simple as possible for the time being, I've set up two armies with the same unit types and the same numbers set at 10 archer cohorts each. Well, unlike EU4, there is only one combat line. As you can see with the Battle of Sicily between Rome and Etruria, each army is laid out in a line facing each other. The number of cohorts you can line up in a row is called combat width. Just a quick reminder that one cohort is made up of 500 men, hence the 5,000 archers you can see. Each archer icon on the battlefield equates to 500 men, so one cohort. Now, how many units can I lay out in a single line, might you ask? Well, this all depends on the terrain type. Each type of terrain has a different limit to combat width. Combat width is located at the top right hand side of the battle screen. In this case, the Roman and Etruscan forces are fighting on plains. This type of terrain has a maximum of 40 combat width, allowing me to place up to 40 units in a line. In this case as Rome, I have 10 cohorts, so well below the maximum limit, which means all my units are placed on the battlefield in a line. But what would happen if the forces exceed the combat width? To showcase what would happen, I have increased the armies fighting to 50 cohorts, which equates to 25,000 men. The 50 cohorts are 10 more than the combat width allows. Now you will notice that the battlefield is taken up entirely by the units, each side laying out 40 cohorts opposite each other. So what about the other 10 cohorts on each side? Well, these are placed in reserve. To see this, just hover your mouse cursor over the units total and you shall see that 10 are placed in reserve. This means that once a cohort has died or fled the battlefield, they will step in to fight in its place. As you can see, that once the first archers are killed or flee, the 10 cohorts in reserve step onto the battlefield. Now that we know how units line up and how many you can place, let's take a look at how they fight. Again, to keep things as simple as possible, I have set up the same type and number of troops to fight, so 5,000 archers against 5,000 archers. We'll add more complicated things later. In Imperator, each cohort faces off against a cohort directly opposite him. So in this case, each cohort of archers is fighting against a cohort directly in front of him. Depending on a series of modifiers, each cohort inflicts morale damage and casualties to the enemy cohorts. And the cohort flees if his morale hits 0 or dies if all units within the said cohort are killed. The amount of morale damage and casualties depends on a lot of factors. Commander traits to general's dice roll, terrain bonuses gained through traditions, discipline, unit effectiveness against other unit types, tactics, and your cohort's experience all modify these values. But more on this in detail later. Now this sequence of combat has been done with an equal number of units on each side. What happens once I have one side with more units than the other? Again, to keep this simple, I shall only use the same type of cohorts, so going to be archers. So I've set Rome with 20 cohorts of archers against Etruria with only 16 cohorts, so 4 less. As you can see when the armies line up, the Romans have 2 extra units to overhang the Etruscan line. This enables you to flank, and it is super effective. Each unit type has a maneuver value that determines its flanking range. Archers have one maneuver that allows them to hit a cohort that is 1 row away. As you can see, all the cohorts that are facing each other are fighting like normal. Now the extra units on the Roman flank have no units facing them, meaning that no one is attacking them. This means that they can flank. And as you can see, the first overhanging archer cohort is hitting the last Etruscan cohort from the side due to the archer's one maneuver thus dealing more morale damage and casualties to the last Etruscan cohort of the line, who not only has to deal with the cohort directly in front of him, but the one flanking him as well. On a quick side note, you will see that the very last Roman cohort of the line is not attacking anyone, since the closest Etruscan unit is 2 rows away. Now, since archers have 1 maneuver, he can't hit it. Just remember, to flank, you need to outnumber the enemy. If the combat width is filled out by both sides, then you only start to flank when the enemy has no more reserves to bring onto the battlefield, and that you progressively start to outnumber the units on the line. Flanking can get very interesting if you place high maneuver units on the flanks, like cavalry for instance, whose high maneuver value of 3 allows you to hit units that are 3 rows away. Speaking of different unit types allows me to showcase what a real battle is like, which mixes things up a bit and is not fought by only one unit type like I've been showcasing for simplicity's sake. So here we have a battle raging between Rome and Etruria on the plains of Clermont. As Rome we have 33 cohorts, so 8 heavy infantry, 5 light cavalry, 17 light infantry and 3 supply trains. The Etruscans have 28 cohorts made up of 6 archers, 6 heavy infantry, 3 light cavalry, 11 light infantry and 2 supply trains. Since the battle is taking place on plains, both sides have a maximum combat width of 30. Rome has 30 fighting cohorts, so the whole combat width is taken up. You will notice that the supply trains are in reserve. They are always placed in reserve upon combat since they are support troops. The Etruscans have 26 combat troops, so all the 26th are placed in a line, leaving 2 slots open at the extremity of their line. Their supply trains are also placed in reserve just like the Romans because they are not combat units. Now this is where you ask me, when you have multiple types of units, how do you determine who is placed where on the line? Well, you do this in the army screen before going into combat. Here you select your primary, secondary and flanking cohorts. Here you can also determine the number of units desired on the flanks to 2, 5 or 10. Just remember there are 2 flanks on the battlefield, so make sure your flanking units double the flank size. For example, a flank size of 2 means 2 flanking units on one side, so for it to be efficient you need 4 flanking units in your army. The primary cohorts are the first to engage the enemy. The secondary cohorts engage once the primary cohorts flee or have been killed, and the flanking units are placed on the flank. Now there are 2 ways this can work. If your primary cohorts fill out the entirety of the line, then the secondary cohorts are placed in reserve and intervene when the primary cohort is killed or flees. As for your flanking units, the amount placed on the flank depends on the set flank size. For instance, if the flanking units were like cavalry cohorts and the size was set to 5, the game would automatically allocate 5 slots on either side of your line to light cavalry, meaning that out of your 30 heavy infantry primary cohorts, 10 would be placed in reserve to accommodate the flanking units. Just remember, if you set your flanking size to 5, this means you need 10 flanking cohorts because there are 2 flanks on the battlefield. If you don't have enough flanking troops, then the flanking slots will be filled up by other units. Up next is the second case scenario where the combat width is not filled out to its maximum. This is the case with the Battle of Clermont between Rome and Etruria. Since I have set heavy infantry as the primary cohorts, they make up the centre of the line. Then placed next to them are the secondary cohorts, so in this case the light infantry. And finally we have the flanking units that I have set as light cavalry. As you can see, I have intentionally mistakenly set the flanking size to 5, even though I only have 5 flanking cohorts to show what happens. The game realises that I don't have enough flanking units to set either side, so it evens it out, placing 3 on the right and 2 on the left. Remember what I said, that if you set your flanking size to 5, the game will try to place 5 flanking cohorts on either side of your line. Now the flanking units are always placed to be able to flank lining up with the enemy's last units on either side of his line. This moves out some of the secondary cohorts to the extremity of your line, hence why we have a couple of light infantry units on the very far side of our line. Okay, so now it's time to take you through the exact process of a battle. Now this last part is not scripted, I've not written anything, so I'm just basically speaking off the top of my head, so it may not be as fluid as previously, but please bear with me. So anyway, we are in the Battle of Clermont here, and of course we have the combat width of 30, which means our 30 troops are lined out in a line, because we have 30 of them exactly. The supply trains are in reserve, since they're support troops, and they stay behind. The Etruscans, on the other hand, have 26 fighting forces and 2 cohorts of supply trains in reserve. They're 26 cohorts lined up in a line, and of course they have 4 less, which opens up the 2 slots on the flank here, so we have flanking advantage. Okay. Now, what is happening here, of course, so the units fight off directly with the units in front of them. We have got our heavy infantry placed as our primary cohort, so they're placed in the middle here, and they're facing off the units straight opposite him. Same for the secondary cohorts, which we have placed light infantry units who are placed next to my heavy infantry in the middle, as you can see, and they're facing directly off with the troops opposite them. And then we have our flank on our flank side, which are the light cav side, who are placed on the flank. And of course, since I do not have enough for the set flank size of 5, because if I had a set flank size of 5, I would ideally need 5 horse archers on either side, 5 light cav, sorry, on either side, which would make 10 light cav in total. Since I don't have enough, the game's basically split it up evenly, or as even as it can. Since it's an odd number, it's placed 3 on one side and 2 on the other. Considering that in order to flank, what happens is it kind of sets the flanking units with the limit of the other units, so it can actually attack and then flank. So that is the setup here. Now what's going on, as we can see, so each unit is fighting off against the unit opposite him. So if I go on my heavy infantry unit here, so this is a 7th levy of Fusons, okay, and it's attacking the 1st levy of Siner, which is the directly one opposite, as you can see. And what's going on here, each units are doing morale damage and troop damage to each other, and basically one cohort flees, or it kind of goes away if it's kind of got no morale or is killed. So basically, if let's say for example this archer unit here went down to 0 morale, it would flee. Currently it's at 1.47 out of 3.46 morale, and as soon as that morale hits 0, it will flee. Same applies to the number of men. Here it currently has 420 men. If that men kind of number hits 0, then it would flee. We can also see the different damage modifiers applied to different units against different unit types. So here you can see we have so we're doing extra damage due to, the damage is calculated due to the dice roll of our leader. As you can see in the battle, we've rolled a 4, which is less than the other guy. The other guy rolled a 6, so that is modifying his damage. As you can see, dice roll 6 there. If we had any terrain or leader modifiers, which we don't, but the enemy does because we're attacking him, so he has the advantage of +1 to his dice roll, which is pretty cool for him, but not for me. And then, of course, you have the base damage of the unit. After, what happens is you get load of modifiers applied on it. So you have discipline. So the more discipline you have, then of course the more damage you'll do. Then you can apply if that specific unit has any kind of extra bonus against a unit type. So here you can see our heavy infantry offense versus archers defense +10, which is kind of working for us there, which is actually great. And the discipline of +21.46%. Now, if I want to see how much discipline I've got, just go to the ledger here, go to your cohorts, and normally you should see how much discipline we have. Now, considering we have an overall 16% discipline applied to the whole of the army, what we're doing for the heavy infantry here is we are adding on the extra discipline, which should be down here somewhere. And there we go, an extra 5% discipline on top of that 16.46, and that should add up quite nicely to 21.46, like it does down here. There we go, 21.46. Now, heavy infantry offense versus archers defense +10% is also present in the ledger. Just go in here and scroll down, you can see our heavy infantry offense bonus gives us a nice +10%, and that is what's applied on the battle down here. Okay, +10%. Same if I go to the other side, you'll see the extra kind of modifiers applied to that that unit fighting my other unit. So as you can see, as we said, this guy's got the dice roll, the terrain leader modifier, and the base damage. Then on top of that, you add his discipline, which is only 2.5%, and then he has versus heavy infantry +10%. Now this is because if you go on to archers down here, and you can see that against heavy infantry, they do +10% damage. This is applied here, as you can see, +10% damage to heavy infantry. And then, of course, you've got the tactics applying if they're good. So shock versus deception. Well, the tactics don't really give any bonus or negative effect to either side, so that doesn't change. And that's that. So as I said, that one cohort will die if his morale goes to 0 or the amount of men goes to 0. So we have the heavy infantry fighting down here. Then, of course, you've got the secondary kind of cohorts, so the light infantry squaring off against the other units opposite them as well. And then we come to the flanking. So at the moment we have, so our flanks filled up with, actually, sorry, no, I set my flank, I'm trying to get my kind of thoughts here, it's maybe a little bit complicated, but I set my flank size to 5, so it's basically put 5 units on the flank. So that, as you can see here, we've got 3 light cav and then 2 light infantry units, and there we've got 2 light cav and 3 light infantry units. So basically, my flank size has been set to 5, which means that I don't have enough kind of light cav to set the flank size as 5 on each side, so it's basically taken an excess of the secondary cohorts and placed them on the side here. If I was clever, I would have placed it as 2, and then it would probably how to put it, the light infantry would have filled in the middle, and then the kind of 2 cav units would be on the outer extremity of the line here. So basically what's going on here, so we've got the cav fighting 2 cav units on the right side and a light infantry unit here. Again, the same principle applies. They attack, do troop damage, morale damage, and as soon as one hits 0, that unit goes away and flees and whatnot. And then you can see all the extra modifiers applied to the damage we're doing. So all these modifiers that apply to discipline, tactics and all that, it applies to the damage and the morale damage you do, okay? And then on the flanks here, we've got the light infantry. So of course, light infantry have 1 maneuver. So this one is being able to hit this guy. You can see this. Light infantry 4th levy of Fusons is currently attacking the 3rd levy of Siner, which is here. You can see it's doing damage. So this light troop unit has got to contend with this light cav unit and this light infantry unit. You'll notice that this one on the far flank here of light infantry cannot do anything because his 1 maneuver won't allow him to hit this one, which is 2 units away. Now let's see what happens when we go through the battle day by day. So we're going to kind of go through the game here, bim bam boom, and we'll see what happens. So quickly here, what happened is we have the flanking ones were the first to go because flanking is a massive advantage. So his light infantry units here on the right side have died, so is some on the left side, because of course they're being attacked twice while they can only attack 1. And now this has opened up the flank even more for us. So what's going on here now is that we now have an extra light cav on the flank because as they die, their line is getting smaller. And now we have this light cav being able to hit this one. So you can see here we go to the light cav attacking the 3rd levy of Aritim, and it's attacking him here, the 3rd levy Aritim. You'll notice that these 2 light infantry units on the flanks can't attack again because their maneuver won't let them. This horse unit is 2 kind of slots away, which means he can't do it. So now we'll keep rolling. Let's keep the game going. Bim, bam, boom. Am I going? Now I'm going. Let's roll. Let's see what else has happened. Okay, so now our heavy infantry have completely smashed their middle line here, which means this line is going to contract and form into the middle. You shall see very soon it kind of forms up, and then it's going to give us even more flanking possibilities. So you'll see, let's see, there we go. See, they're trying to get closer, they're trying to form up in the middle here, and now they are, bang, okay, they're formed up. And again, here we still have the advantage in numbers on the line, and we are flanking this time more efficiently because of course now we have the light cav on, especially on the right side here, as far out as possible. Now if you remember, they can hit units from 3 tiles away. So we've got this one here, the 2nd levy of Fusons is currently attacking the 5th levy of Siner, which is, where is that one? The 5th levy of Siner? I think it is, isn't it? Attacking the 5th levy of Siner, which is this one here. So this light unit is attacking this one. And then we have this one, the 2nd light cav is also attacking the 5th levy of Siner, because of course the horse's maneuver is 3. And of course if we go down 1, 2, 3, that is the 3rd one across, and you can hit it. And you'll notice that the last light cav here can't hit it because this light infantry unit is 4 kind of spaces away, and the light cav doesn't have the 4 flanking maneuver. And so anyway, we're going to keep going, keep rolling, and see what else is going on. Bim bam boom, and now they're slowly being crushed. Oh, get this message away. They're slowly being crushed by everybody now, because we're just going to be flanking them completely unless they can push and kill our middle line. But our heavy infantry is holding pretty strong. Our flanking is seriously killing them now. Everybody's flanking now on each side. We've got a light kind of cav here flanking on this one. We've got the light cav flanking on this one. And yeah, it's only a matter of time before they die. However, this is a good example to show reinforcements. So this guy's coming in now with an extra 3,000 men, and this might turn the tide of battle. And it probably has. So you can see they've reinforced and they've brought extra units on the line. Now they fill the extremities. They don't fill in the middle now. So they've kind of filled up on the side here. And now this gives us more to contend with. So now we're suffering losses, and we are really being in trouble now because, oh no, have we pushed it back? I don't think so. Maybe we haven't. Nope. And now they're flanking us. So now they've reinforced and they've, like, the units opposite each other have killed each other. Now he's flanking me, which means this guy, his light cavalry 1st levy of Pisner, is attacking the 3rd levy of Fusons. This one, which is my light infantry, because he is 1, 2, 3 slots away from him. So he's there. So now it's really a matter of time before we are dying. So his reinforcements have come in to save the day, and he should technically win this battle because the rest of our forces are going to fall because we are being severely flanked. And this should be the end of the battle very shortly now. Bim, bam, bloody boom. Is he dead yet? He is dead. He's going to die. This is the last one. And there we go. They've all fled. and now our supply trains have come in, because when they all flee, the supply trains in reserve get caught up, and then they get absolutely bashed. And yeah, now it's pretty much the end of the battle here, and the battle is finished because our morale, because our troops are totally gone on the battlefield. All of them are routed, and now we have lost quite a few men. We lost 8,783 of our 16,000 men, so about half. But they lost a fair amount as well. They lost about 10,000 men, and the fact that they reinforced the battle kind of turned the tide. So what happens now is we retreat, and generally we retreat to the closest fort. That's how it works, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I think it works like that. Anyway, that's about it from me for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope it helped you understand battles a little bit better. If it did help at all in any shape or form, please don't hesitate to hit that like button down below. It really does help. And of course, if you want to see some more Imperator Rome content, then please consider subscribing to the channel for more. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for being here and watching the video, and I'll hopefully catch you all in the next one. Bye for now.